So continuing the theme of the selection tools, let's now start looking at the lasso. And the lasso is a really great tool for making complex selections that actually allows you to click and drag your selection and even draw parts of your selection before you make a final decision. So let's just say I want to cut out this semi-complex shape. You can see that if we were to use the rectangular lasso tool, there would be a little bit of an issue here, meaning like it would overlap and cut out this border of the artwork, which we don't want. We just want to cut out this sort of frame. And so there's different ways to do this, and you can actually combine these different tools. But for now, since we're just getting started here, let's just start with the lasso. I'm going to click down and drag and actually draw. And it might be easier with a mouse. I'm sure I'm using a trackpad here, a little clunky. Drag a shape around, and when I release, you can see it turns into now this kind of complex selection, which is fantastic, because now I can actually cut this shape specifically out of there. And I'm going to go and put it in my assets folder like we've been doing. Command Shift V, paste in place, and you can see, you know, it works. You got the majority of it. It got this white artwork, and we're going to deal with this in a second. This aspect of this whiteness that is basically not necessary. We need to remove this, and we're just sort of hiding it by multiplying it, combining it with the tone behind it. But we actually ideally would just want this black artwork as a layer that's transparent, like the artwork is sitting on top of the background, and we have all this extra white space from the original sketch. So it's not ideal, so it works for now. And so let's just name this right border, and I'm just going to use R for right. And now you can see that's how the lasso tool works. Now let's explore the okay, let's do two things. Let's explore the lasso tool a little bit more. So let's just say we got a little ways off, and then we were like, oh, I couldn't get that part of the selection, and for some reason we wanted to add to the selection. So there's a way to do that, which is still while holding down Shift, we can see it actually creates a positive selection so that we can draw and add to the selection. So that's really useful, because we're not always going to get it right the first time, especially while using a mouse or trackpad to draw these things. But let's just say we got too much, and let's say, like, for example, I somehow accidentally included this in my selection. Now, since this is actually on a separate layer already, this technically won't affect it. So if I actually cut from this artwork, it's not going to affect this part of the image. But let's just say it was on the same layer. Let's just say this layer was still combined. If I cut this out, this part of this symbol would be cut out, and that's not what we want. So if that were the case, let's just assume that it is the case. Let's hold down the Alt key, and we're going to draw now. This is creating a negative space. So we're actually drawing a negative of what we don't want to sort of cut out this shape for this current border that we want to take away from the art layer, move it into its own layer so it's more manipulatable. And so that's what we want. Let's just try something really cool, which is to combine these different selection tools. So like, let's go back to the rectangle, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to drag a selection. You can see it's creating a marquee. And if I release, it actually deleted that shape of that rectangle, so that I'm left with a much cleaner experience for my selection. And this is useful for a lot of reasons. I mean, for this particular thing, it's very useful because I'm trying to do these straight lines, and this is freehand, so there's a lot of jagged edges. I'm just going to go right up to the edge of my artwork. And then, again, Command C to cut, go up to my assets, Command Shift V, paste in place. And we can see, like, look how close I got to the white border. This is only a few pixels of white there showing. So that's really good. And I could even take this a step further using my rectangular selection and cutting out a little bit of the jagged black, assuming that I don't want that and I want it to look really clean, I can actually hit delete, and you can see the selection is now deleted, and it's deleted the white space so that it's revealing the background color behind it. So that's a really great way to sort of trim down things that are not looking 100% clean. And so this is useful for a number of reasons. And right now we're just going to set this to multiply. So for now it looks good. And we can see it's still not named, and we want to name it left border. So I'm just going to copy and paste that layer name, and I'm going to go L border. And so basically we have one more tool to go over here in the lasso, which is the Polygonal Lasso. And this is a really, really fast way to cut out some of these complex shapes, but it only does straight lines. So if I click, you can see instead of dragging, it's a more of a toggle thing, right? Click and it sets a point, and then I have to click again to set the next point. And here you can actually hold the shift key to go from horizontal to 45 degrees to vertical. And that shift key is basically a constraining key in Photoshop. It constrains things to a certain parameters. And so if I connect and finish this off, I can double click. You can see I did my best, but it caught a little bit of that edge there. It's not a perfect square. So if I needed it to be a perfect square, I could come in here, hold down the Alt key, and just drag a selection around it to cut out that part that we don't want. And again, this is a duplicate of this, but I just wanted to show you how the Polygonal Lasso works. And it's really useful for doing complex shapes, but only, probably not so good for circular shapes, in that a circular selection, elliptical marquee would be better for selecting a more complex circular shape. So that's it for the lasso and the magnetic lasso tool. And next we're going to be looking at the magic wand tool, which is a lot of fun.